Welcome back everyone to another video, and today is a very special one because today I went to my first ever over-the-board tournament, which is classical. Now classical chess is your opponent and yourself have 1 hour and 30 minutes, for example, to think with some increment, which is the correct way of playing chess. You need to have a lot of time to think. And today was my first game and my first ever tournament that I went to. Now, all of my tournaments before this point were, with the local schools and playing against one another and getting fourth place. But this is the big deal. This is the big deal with the chess club and stuff like that. This is, the big boy league. Now we've entered the deep waters. I'm gonna have to be a little bit more competitive from now on and take chess a little bit more seriously, especially after I graduate from high school. Anyway. This is going to be a new chess series where we analyze over-the-board games that I played. If there's any funny stories, of course, we'll share them. But yeah, this first one was against a 900 FIDE ELO player. And yeah, let's watch the game, try to learn from it something. Maybe yes, maybe not. It's okay. And if you're here for the funnies, I appreciate it. Let's go. Welcome back everyone to the brand new series of this channel of over-the-board tournaments. This is day one. This is the first game. We played the game. It was, again, time control is 1 hour and 30 minutes each with 40 seconds bonus time. And I had the black pieces, so let's begin. D4. And my first over-the-board tournament chess game with, the ELOs and shit, is a London system. This is the second mistake my opponent made, which is playing the London system. The first mistake was to go to the tournament in the first place. That's okay, I'm joking, obviously. D5 and Knight C3, the Jobava London style. That's all it took for me to realize I'm playing someone lower rated. That's all it took. A6, which is a little bit of preparation here to prevent the knight from hopping in. Excuse me, that didn't happen again. That would be absurd. In the London, what you need to be doing is you need to play aggressive. You need to strike at the center. You need to strike with your pieces before they get settled. Knight to F3 and C5. Now the engine gives a 0.7 rating, but the idea is that if I get taken, I develop faster. And white has to find this absurd Knight A4 idea, which, if you give it check, obviously, white defends it. But the pawn is very weak, could fall, imminently could fall. It's a really hard position. I know the engine is saying that, but really it's not an easy position. Actually, the best move here is E6, supporting the center, attacking the pawn. The best move again is C3. If you play like E3 here, quickly you lose the thread, and that's the problem with the London system. You need to not lose the thread, and you need to go into these counter-attacking measures. Not like that, and then, you eventually will, lose the pawn. It's actually pretty hard to keep it, but the position will get dynamically complicated, and this is what I really wanted, because a lot of things can happen in these positions, and taking the London player out of their comfort zone is actually the best thing you can do. E3, my opponent does not go for that. Knight to C6, making the pawn look juicier. Bishop E2, developing the bishop, and Bishop G4. Bishop G4 has clear intentions of taking the knight and replacing my pawns on a light square color complex, so we can battle the light square bishop. H3, bishop takes, and there's the move E6. Now this position is relatively equal, nothing wrong with it, so my opponent castles and I go queen to B6. Now I know the engine says +1, the reason is this, and if I calculated this in my game, I would go here, not here actually, here for example. If the knight gets defended, that's okay, we can always take this here, and we're still pretty okay. I know the engine is being over dramatic, but this position is not that bad. We will just slide out of the way, go b5, and slowly attack on the queen side, develop our pieces, etc. Now they could start an attack first, but it's still pretty okay. This position is manageable, and if this, we can always just trade, bishop for knight. It's not bad. So yeah, the position is not bad at all. But my opponent goes rook b1. Now rook b1 confidently hangs a pawn, completely ignoring the idea of queen to b6, which was to add a layer of pressure onto the d4 pawn, and we simply just take it, and we simplify down to a queenless middle game. Now what my opponent should have done here is knight to e2. We would still trade the queens, but it's not going to lead to as bad of an endgame as, you know, it would be in this game. So, instead of that, we've traded the queens, and I attack the bishop and the pawn. Now my opponent plays the move bishop to e5. And bishop to e5 is just the whole idea is to attack the knight. If I take this pawn, which looks free, it is free, there's nothing wrong with it, but I activate his stuff. I activate his things, and he gets to double my pawns, and I don't want that. So instead of that, I took the bishop with a check, forcing him to do this, and then I went bishop e7 to defend the knight. Now there's a lot of moves my opponent can do here. I mean, like bringing back the knight, and then I would actually set up a trap here, like a bit of calculation. Knight to d7. If you take the pawn, I pin you, I win your bishop. That's the whole idea. Now, if you move your bishop, then I would continue activating my stuff, and you would simply have a double isolated pawn structure on the f-file and an isolated pawn on h3. That was my whole plan. But bishop takes f6, and bishop takes f6. Okay, fantastic. My opponent trades their bishop for a knight for absolute no reason. Don't do that. If you're gonna trade a bishop for a knight, you need to have a tangible reason to do it. In this case, there's nothing. Now, there was an idea here, knight to a4, which I calculated, but it just simply does not work. Rook c1 here, and I mean, it just doesn't work at all. It looks like white is doing something. They're not. Really, they're not. There's nothing here. So rook f2 e1. This move also is really not great because it does literally nothing. A better move might have been, you know, knight to e2 and rerouting the knight, trying to find a way to bounce back. But instead we have rook f2 e1, and I simply just snap take this knight and play the move b5. Now, this position, there is isolated h-pawn, isolated double pawns on the f-file, isolated double pawns on the c-file, and an isolated a2 pawn. This is not great. This is the positions that I really don't want to get myself into, but I want to get my opponents into, if you know what I mean. Now my opponent starts thinking for very long periods of time. a3 for some reason. Now a better move here, unfindable, but it's the move a4. If I take you, you double my pawns. That's the whole idea. And then you can slowly win the back, but it's really not, you know, it's really not great. I can play like king e7 here and rook g8, rook b8. I just don't care. You go take back your pawn. I just have enough time to harass your pawns. Really not a great position. a3, however, for some reason, I cannot explain it. And king to d7. Now, king d7 also is tied with king e7. It's the same concept, but with a different square. The whole idea is you do not have to castle. It's an endgame, and you're closer to the center than your opponent, and you can get your king activated faster. That's the whole plan. King d7. Rook b4. And rook a to c8, and rook b3. I do not understand this sequence of moves. Now, if you wanted to defend your pawn, why not just go rook b3 straight up? I mean, it would be the same sequence. Okay, fantastic. Anyway. Rook b4, rook a c8, and rook b3. Now, rook c4. There it is. We double up on the c-file. The reason that is because the c-file is semi-open. In a closed position, what you need to be doing is identify if there is, of course, available an opportunity to open up a file. You need to be the one controlling it. If in a closed position you control the only open file, you're probably going to win the game because your opponent will have zero counterplay, right? Unless there's like pawn breaks everywhere. Rook d1 and rook h8 and rook d3. I mean, this just looks so ugly here. I was calculating a move like d4 here. If I get taken, I take this. And if I get taken, I take like this. And same scenario, I have the open file, you have isolated pawns, and I'm just completely winning here. But I played g6. king g2, h5. Basically, the f7 and a6 pawns, they are the weak points in parentheses of my position, but they're not weak at all because the pawns and the rooks are doing a pretty good job at positionally protecting them. The rooks cannot get into my position at all. And white does not have any pawn breaks that help them. King g3, king e7 back, a little bit of a bonk cloud here. f4, king f6, and king f5. Now h4 is completely weakening, I don't know why he played it. And now you need to start recommitting your rooks. And then I would just slowly bring back my rooks. And what can you play here? Honestly, I don't know if you can play anything. Like here, for example, I would just reroute, bring back my rooks, and slowly destroy you. This position is just not defendable. The pawns don't even help you. They're extremely weak, and you can take advantage of them. Which is why you need to not have double pawns and isolated pawns in the endgame, because they could be really weak. But we have f3 for some reason, and we take the free pawn. Now rook b4. Now, most of you would probably just snap take this rook, but the problem is you open up a different file, which you do not want that. They could get some other counterplay through the A file. It's semi-open now. There's two files that can open up. So instead of that, we go rook c to c4. Because we do not want to trade on their terms, we want to trade on our terms, which is crazy. Now, if we get taken, we simply just take the rook. We still have the only semi-open file in the position, and we'll slowly work our way to try and break it up with like e5 and d4, and slowly break our way through the cracks of the position. Rook d4, and now a lot of rooks are staring at one another. This position is completely dead lost for white, and it was dead lost like this is the beginning because they played a London system, but that's okay. So rook f takes d4 and rook takes c2, and now we have the only open file in the position. White's rook is just complete trash. White's pawns are complete trash. And my pawns are nicely connected. My rook controls the only open file. This position is a literal dream scenario for a Union Over the Board tournament. a4 trying to break up my structure. And now very important to move rook to c4. If we take this pawn, then we simply allow a little too much. And we need to go back and defend. And then, you know, it's still completely winning, but it's not as winning. So instead of that, we have rook c4 back. Now white has two choices. Either give me the a-pawn and give me two passers, and probably lose the game still, or trade rooks with me and give me two pass pawns. And now the game is simply a steamroller. King f2, king f4, a takes. Two pass pawns, can't stop him. And in this position, my opponent played a brilliant move. After king e2 and b4, my opponent actually, a little bit of a funny story here, my opponent thought for half an hour. Half an hour. I was wandering around seeing the other people, what openings they're playing, and the games, how they're going. My team is doing pretty good, though. And then I see my opponent from a distance grab his d-pawn and just en passant and remove my c-pawn from the board. Which is illegal. You can't do that. Maybe he thought that this is en passant. If you're wondering, it's not. It's when a pawn moves two squares in front of another, next to another pawn, and then you can take it for only one move turn. Only on that turn only can you take it. He probably confused those two things and just did this, and we had to call the arbiter to, solve this. And I said maybe that's a bit of an illegal move. And then the arbiter just looked me dead in the eye and said, do you think that's an illegal move? Obviously, he just grabbed the pawn and just, took it. And even then, the position is still winning. Like, takes, you bring the king down, like let's say, actually, d takes c5 was possible, then, I don't know, king e5, c6, and king d6, and I'm still completely winning the game. I still have a pass pawn. I'm still up, 3 pawns. It's just awful. So then we have to restart this, and now he goes king e2. b4, king e2. I also told them to not, penalize him, by giving me extra time. I mean, fine, we all make mistakes, so, I didn't want him to get penalized. At least in that way, trust me. King takes f3, king c2, king e4, slowly converting the advantage. King b2, king takes. King c2, e5. Now you're probably wondering why I'm not, using the 2 pawns that are connected. You'll see. King d2, b3, king c1, e4, king b2, e3, king c1, c3, king d1, king d3. And there's like a mate here. I mean, king e1, b2, king f1, c2. And ladies and gentlemen, my first ever over-the-board tournament game is a bad manners game. The first ever official over-the-board tournament that I play on is a BM, which, signifies my style. And now it's king f3, rook f1 check, king d2, and then making the queen. I was really considering of making a rook here. Actually, when I made the rook, my opponent tried to reach for my queen to give it to me. But I was like, no, and I grabbed the rook, and then he was laughing like crazy. And then the spectators that were like walking around during their games also started laughing a little bit. B1 equals queen, and rook f2 check, king g3, queen g1 check, and checkmate with the rook. That was my first ever official over the board tournament with the chess club. A convincing victory. The only inaccurate thing about this game was just, this queen b6 business here. It's not too bad. It's still very much playable, but, the engine is a hater. And that was the first game of the tournament. And next Sunday, we're gonna play the second one, and hopefully win that one too. But yeah, we're starting off strong our chess career in the over-the-board tournaments. Of classical. This was classical. With a win. That was it. That was the game. Hope you learned something with while watching this game. Key takeaways: do not trade your bishops for knights, for no reason. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.